One introduction Rosep view the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosep view purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or ROSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this ROSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning, and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, residents against wood smoke emission particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Episode 57 DHWF June 6, 2025 Germans buying more electric cars but not Tesla's 152 billion Tesla loss. In episode 57 DHWF 1-2 headlines 3 Germans are buying more electric cars but not Tesla's 4 eyes on Senate Republicans as Trump and Musk feud over tax and spend bill 5 impeachment Epstein and bitter acrimony Trump and Musk joust in astonishing social media duel 6 Kyiv is under attack after Russia vowed retaliation for Ukraine striking Russian heavy bomber planes 7 Elon Musk Tesla share plunge amid Trump feud wipes 152 billion off the Elon Musk company 8 Trump versus Musk the two worst people in the world are finally having a big beautiful breakup. In episode 57 DHWF Part 2 1-2 headlines 3 Canada Marc Garneau first Canadian in space dies at 76 4 Kentucky doctors were preparing to remove their organs then they woke up 5 The Netherlands ASML how the maker of the most complex machine humans ever created is navigating trade fights 6 Germany Trump scorns Angela Merkel legacy during the White House visit of the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz struggles to get word in as Trump focuses on the record of former German leader who left office in 2021 7 Cancer key takeaways from the largest cancer conference in the world in Chicago experts announce findings on immunotherapy a breast cancer breakthrough in the value of exercise 8 Ukraine he is a bulldog the man behind the success of the Ukraine operation Spiderweb Vasyl Malyuk who hailed giving Russia a slap in the face has scored a series high-profile successes as head of the security service of Ukraine SBU main content. 1 Headlines The New York Times June 5, 2025 China Trump and Xi hold call China says the New York Times health code violations Trump Golf Club in Bedminster racks up health violations The New York Times Musk how Trump and Elon the Musk relationship has unraveled recently The New York Times Musk timeline of Elon Musk and the Trump fight with key posts and statements The New York Times Musk Trump and the Musk relationship melts down in spectacular fashion The New York Times Musk updates Trump and Musk alliance crumbles amid public threats and insults The New York Times Russia launches broad assault on Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine The New York Times Tesla shares slide as Trump Elon Musk feud escalates The New York Times Tesla Germans are buying more electric cars but not Teslas The New York Times Tesla plunge or Trump impeachment 8 ways Elon Musk and Trump could inflict pain on each other The New York Times Trump opinion people around President Trump are acting very strangely The New York Times Trump budget cuts tax credit increase would exclude millions of low-income children Study finds The New York Times Ukraine Trump compares Russia and Ukraine to children fighting The New York Times United Kingdom UK faces extraordinary threat from Russian and Iranian plots Official warns The New York Times United States FBI as ousters continue FBI singles out employee over friendship with Trump critic The New York Times 2 headlines The Guardian June 5, 2025 eyes on Senate Republicans as Trump and Musk feud over tax and spend bill Donald Trump The Guardian impeachment Epstein and bitter acrimony Trump and Musk joust in astonishing social media duel Trump The Guardian Russia attacks Ukraine with missiles and drones as it happened Ukraine The Guardian Tesla share plunge amid Trump feud wipes $152 billion off Elon the Musk company Elon Musk The Guardian Trump versus Musk the two worst people in the world are finally having a big beautiful breakup Arwa Mahdawi The Guardian 3 Germans are buying more electric cars but not Tesla's drivers in Germany which is the largest car market in Europe are avoiding vehicles from Tesla which has seen a drop in sales in other countries as well A Tesla Gigafactory is in Grünheide in Germany registrations for new Tesla vehicles dropped more than a third in May from the prior year 2024 excerpts edited by Rossep for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates a 501c3 non-profit organization The New York Times June 4, 2025 Tesla sales in Germany dropped in May for the 5th month in a row as demand for the electric vehicle maker continued to slide across much of Europe despite Elon the Musk efforts to turn his focus away from his US government activities and back to his company's registrations of new Tesla cars in Germany the largest car market in Europe dropped more than a third from the same month last year Tesla sales in other European countries have also remained depressed. falling more than 67% in France and 29% in Spain in May. Only Norway stood out as an exception, with Tesla selling 2,600 cars in May, more than triple the number sold a year earlier. Sales were led by deliveries of the Tesla newly revamped version of its most popular vehicle, the Model E. In neighboring Sweden, Volkswagen sold nearly twice as many of its latest electric model, the ID.7, as the new Model Y from Tesla, whose overall sales in the country dropped 53%. Musk has tried to downplay the extent of Tesla losses in Europe, saying the European car market is quite weak, but data from European markets does not support that claim. In Germany, sales of battery-powered cars grew nearly 45% in May compared with a year earlier. In Spain, overall sales of electric cars grew 72%, while Tesla sales slid 19%. In Germany, demand for BYD, the Tesla main EV rival, rose ninefold, the strongest showing of an electric vehicle producer from China. The company BYD, which overtook Tesla as the top seller of electric cars in the world this year, has been making inroads in Europe despite facing tariffs of 17% imposed by the European Union in 2024. Although Musk has left his role at the White House, Tesla sales have been affected by his foray into politics. In April, the company reported that its vehicle sales fell 13% in the first quarter from a year earlier as profit plunged to its lowest level in 4 years. 4 eyes on Senate Republicans as Trump and Musk feud over tax and spend bill. Lawmakers still weighing whether to pass Big Beautiful Bill. A rift between U.S. President and tech boss Musk calls for Trump to be impeached as extraordinary feud escalates. Chris Stein in Washington accepted by ROSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, June 5, 2025. As the simmering tensions between Trump and his once top advisor, the billionaire Elon Musk, erupted into public view on Thursday, eyes turned to the Republican lawmakers still weighing whether to pass the Trump so-called Big Beautiful Bill. It was approved by just a single vote in the House of Representatives with no Democratic support last month, and nonpartisan analysts have found the sweeping legislation could add a whopping $2.4 trillion to $5 trillion to the $36.2 trillion U.S. national debt and make deep cuts to Medicaid and food assistance programs. Seen as an outline of the Trump America First agenda, the bill would also extend tax cuts, fund beefed up immigration enforcement, and impose new work requirements for enrollees of federal safety net programs. In a barrage of tweets over its cost, which Musk warned would undo the Doge efforts to save the government money by canceling programs and pushing federal workers out of their jobs, the billionaire called on conservatives to withdraw their support for the bill, along with personal barbs aimed at Trump, including trumpeting support for his impeachment and signaling Trump ties to child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Musk spent Thursday afternoon reposting years-old quotes from the House Speaker Mike Johnson and the Senate Leader John Thune when the Republican lawmakers spoke critically of federal debt. The Musk intense withdrawal of support for the administration has magnified a rift in the Republican Party that was already threatening the passage of the bill in the Senate. While the Senate Republican leaders have shown no indication that they share the Musk concerns, they are eyeing changes to some aspects of the measure that were the result of hard-fought negotiations in the House and could throw its prospects into jeopardy. Musk then pivoted to personal attacks on Trump after praising him just days earlier in an Oval Office appearance to mark the end of his time leading DOJ. Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate, he said, responding to a video of Trump remarks such ingratitude. 5 Impeachment. Epstein in bitter acrimony. Trump and Musk joust in astonishing social media duel. Tensions over the Republican spending bill burst into public view as the Trump relationship with his former advisor deteriorated. Tesla share plunge amid Trump feud. Wipes $152 billion off company. Excerpts edited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, June 5, 2025. Elon Musk called for Trump impeachment and mocked his connections to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as the U.S. president threatened to cancel federal contracts and tax subsidies for the Musk companies in an extraordinary social media feud that erupted between the former allies on Thursday. Musk said on X the reason Trump had not released the files into Epstein was because they implicated Trump. He later quote-tweeted a post calling for Trump to be impeached and removed and said Trump tariffs would cause a recession. Time to drop the really big bomb. Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Musk wrote after Trump threatened to cut subsidies for the Musk companies as it would save billions. Speaking in the Oval Office as the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz looked on in bemusement, Trump mocked the Musk recent black eye and questioned why he did not cover it up. Musk fired off his Epstein tweet, in effect accusing him of being part of an alleged child sexual abuse ring linked to Epstein, using a dog whistle for the MAGA movement to try to set them against the president. In doing so, Musk ignored his own connections to Epstein. In 2014, like Trump, Musk was photographed at a party with Ghislaine Maxwell, a former Epstein girlfriend who was convicted in 2021 on charges that she helped the financier Epstein in sex trafficking activities. Musk spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the Trump re-election campaign through his specially created America PAC, which shouldered a large portion of the Trump door-knocking campaign, although the actual impact of that ground game effort is unclear. 6. Kyiv is under attack after Russia vowed retaliation for Ukraine striking Russian heavy bomber planes. Subsedited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, June 5, 2025. At least 3 wounded in missile and drone attack on Kyiv. Russia attacked Ukraine with Russian ballistic missiles and drones during a nighttime attack early on Friday, wounding at least 3 people. Officials said multiple explosions were heard in Kyiv, the capital, and falling debris triggered fires across several districts as air defense systems tried to intercept incoming targets, said the Kyiv head city administrator Timur Kachenko. Authorities reported damage in several districts and rescue workers were responding at multiple locations. Officials urged residents to seek shelter. The attacks came after Russia accused Kyiv of state terrorism over its drone operation, striking Russian heavy bomber planes at air bases in Siberia and the far north at the weekend, and said it would respond as and when its military saw fit. In the Friday Russian attacks, a fire broke out in a 16-story residential building in the Kyiv Solomyansky district, and emergency services evacuated 3 people from the apartment. Rescue operations were continuing. Another fire broke out in a metal warehouse. A Shahed drone exploded near an apartment building in the Ukraine northern Chernihiv region, shattering windows and doors. The regional military administration chief said explosions from ballistic missiles were also recorded on the outskirts of the city. Dmytro Brzezinski added, Trump said that during a call with Vladimir Putin on Wednesday he urged the Russian president to refrain from retaliating, but fully expected Moscow to strike back over the Ukraine assault on Russian heavy bomber planes. 7. Elon Musk Tesla share plunge amid Trump feud wipes $152 billion off the Elon Musk company. The shares of the car company dropped by 14.2% and net worth of its billionaire CEO reduced by $8.73 billion. Musk calls for Trump to be impeached as extraordinary feud escalates. Subsedited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, June 5, 2025. Tesla shares dropped by about 14.2% on Thursday at market close, wiping roughly $152 billion off the value of the company as a feud between Elon Musk and Trump erupted into public view. The former political allies traded threats and insults through posts on their respective social media platforms throughout the afternoon as the Tesla price fell. Trump suggested on Truth Social that he could cut the Musk government subsidies and contracts, of which both Tesla and SpaceX have been immense beneficiaries. Musk meanwhile threatened to decommission the SpaceX spacecraft that NASA relies on for transport missions, called for Trump impeachment, derided Trump's signature tariffs, and accused Trump of being affiliated with the notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. 8. Trump vs. Musk. The 2 worst people in the world are finally having a big beautiful breakup. Subsedited by ROSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The Guardian, June 5, 2025. Musk spent $277 million to help get Trump elected. If this happened somewhere else we would call it corruption and the US might invade the country to install democracy, but this is the US we are talking about, so it was fine after Musk donated all those goods and Trump provided the quo. Musk got his Doge gig, through which he weakened all the agencies that were regulating his businesses in the name of saving the US a load of money. The Musk reputation started to tank over the years. The millionaire had managed to convince a depressingly large number of people that he was some sort of genius rocket man with anti-establishment views. Once he became part of the establishment, however, and started slashing federal jobs, a lot of people started to get annoyed with how much influence he had over their lives. lives. Musk was destroying his brand. Tesla shares were dropping, so a week ago he did the sensible thing and announced that he was leaving his role with the Trump administration. Rather more interestingly, however, the first buddy publicly criticized the Trump marquee tax bill on Thursday is when the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein entered the chat. Episode 57 DHWF Part 2 June 6, 2025 The man behind Operation Spiderweb success in Ukraine. In episode 57 DHWF Part 2 1-2 Headlines 3 Canada Marc Garneau first Canadian in space dies at 76 4 Kentucky doctors were preparing to remove their organs then they woke up 5 The Netherlands ASML how the maker of the most complex machine humans ever created is navigating trade fights 6 Germany Trump scorns Angela Merkel legacy during the White House visit of the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz struggles to get word in as Trump focuses on the record of former German leader who left office in 2021 7 Cancer key takeaways from the largest cancer conference in the world in Chicago experts announce findings on immunotherapy a breast cancer breakthrough in the value of exercise 8 Ukraine he is a bulldog the man behind the success of the Ukraine Operation Spiderweb Vasyl Malyuk who hailed giving Russia a slap in the face has scored a series high-profile successes as head of the security service of Ukraine SBU main content. 1 Headlines The New York Times June 6, 2025 Part 2 Africa Africans see the Trump new travel ban as a big slap in the face The New York Times Canada Science Marc Garneau first Canadian in space dies at 76 The New York Times Finland how 3D printed rifle ended up in the middle of the Baltic Sea The New York Times Human Interest 2025 Tony Awards Predictions Best New Musical Best Leading Actress and more The New York Times India Science and Engineering Marvel Decades in the Making a rail line to Kashmir The New York Times Science and Medicine doctors were preparing to remove their organs then they woke up The New York Times Science and Veterinary Medicine horse spits have been used for thousands of years now they are being reconsidered The New York Times Science and Nature there is an effective way to deter rhino poachers a new study finds The New York Times Trump actions DuPont Circle Park will close amid Pride event after all Park Service says The New York Times Trump budget cuts jobs report live updates U.S. employers add 139,000 jobs in May The New York Times Trump budget cuts Trump and Musk have allotted risk in feud live updates The New York Times Trump budget cuts counting up the potential costs of the Trump-Musk rift The New York Times Trump budget cuts Elon Musk returns to his tech empire facing questions of inattention The New York Times Trump budget cuts Elon Musk suggests Trump is in Epstein files a source of conspiracy theories The New York Times Trump budget cuts fired by Doge more federal workers are flooding the job market The New York Times Trump budget cuts IRS upheld a Biden pledge more audits but only on the wealthy The New York Times Trump budget cuts it is a really bad time to be an expert in Washington The New York Times Trump budget cuts jobs report live updates U.S. employers add 139,000 jobs in May The New York Times Trump budget cuts late night rivals in Trump and the Musk public feud The New York Times Trump budget cuts opinion want to be a federal worker you had better agree with Trump The New York Times Trump budget cuts opinion why Trump and the new right declared war on bureaucrats The New York Times Trump budget cuts Steve Bannon says he told Trump to investigate Elon Musk immigration status The New York Times Trump budget cuts Trump and Musk have a lot at risk in feud live updates The New York Times Trump budget cuts Trump and Musk trade threats from broaching impeachment to cutting contracts The New York Times Trump tariffs as the Trump tariffs reshape trades businesses struggle with economic uncertainty The New York Times Trump tariffs China allows limited exports of rare earths as shortages continue The New York Times Trump tariffs Europe wants to banish Russian gas The US may have other plans The New York Times Trump tariffs how ASML a key supplier to the chip industry is navigating the Trump trade war The New York Times Trump tariffs opinion the Trump push for manufacturing jobs does not make sense The New York Times Trump tariffs in China's eye to Trump reign and the hawks trying to derail the tariff truce The New York Times Ukraine Russia pummels Kyiv in apparent retaliation for Ukrainian drone assault The New York Times 2 headlines The Guardian June 6, 2025 Part 2 Germany and the United States Trump scorns Merkel legacy during the White House visit of the new German Chancellor The Guardian Science and recycling tastes like water how a U.S. facility is recycling sewage to drink water The Guardian Science and Medicine food additive titanium dioxide likely has more toxic effects than thought study finds U.S. News. The Guardian. Science and Medicine. Key takeaways from world's largest cancer conference in Chicago. Cancer. The Guardian. Science and Medicine. The Minnesota boundary waters are pristine. The Trump Big Beautiful Bill could pollute them forever. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump actions. Countries under the Trump travel ban are unique subjects of American imperialism. He began aid. The Guardian. Trump budget cuts. The inevitable. Trump Musk feud is finally here, and it is pathetic. Moira Donegan. The Guardian. Trump budget cuts. Trump and the Musk marriage of convenience ended the only way possible for the pair. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump budget cuts. Trump v. Musk. 10 ways they can further hurt each other. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump tariffs have become his Vietnam, and the right is breaking ranks. Sidney Blumenthal. The Guardian. Trump tariffs and Trump budget cuts. U.S. jobs market slows down as businesses cope with Trump trade war uncertainty. U.S. unemployment and employment data. The Guardian. Ukraine. He is a bulldog, the man behind the success of the Ukraine Operation Spiderweb. Ukraine. The Guardian. Ukraine. Moscow says Kyiv drone attack carried out in response to the Ukraine actions. Europe. Live. 3. Canada. Marc Garneau, first Canadian in space, dies at 76. His career took flight with a newspaper ad in Ottawa, where he would later help steer the country as foreign minister under Justin Trudeau. Marc Garneau in 2000 took his third trip to SpaceX, upsetted by RAW-SEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 non-profit organization. The New York Times, June 6, 2025. Marc Garneau, a former military officer who became the first Canadian to fly into space before pursuing a career in federal politics under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau becoming the Canadian Foreign Minister, has died. He was 76. He had been treated for a brief illness. He and his wife lived in Montreal. Garneau, a third-generation military officer, was stationed at the National Defence Headquarters in Ottawa, leading its communications and electronic warfare section, when one evening in 1983 a newspaper ad caught his eye. Canada was looking for astronauts. It set him on a path to space. Garneau made his first voyage in 1984 on the U.S. Space Shuttle Challenger, its sixth flight that year. His duties included measuring atmospheric pollution and water vapor at specific points during the orbit of the Earth. He flew to space twice more, in 1996 and 2000 on the Shuttle Endeavour. He was appointed to lead the Canadian Space Agency in 2001. When his tenure ended in 2005, Garneau joined the Liberal Party of Canada. He was elected to Parliament in 2008, representing a district in Montreal. He sought the Liberal Party leadership in 2013 but dropped out of the race when it became clear that he would lose to Trudeau, the clear front-runner, after revitalizing the Liberal Party and bringing it to a resounding victory in 2015. Trudeau as Prime Minister brought Garneau into his cabinet as Transport Minister. Garneau wrote his autobiography, A Most Extraordinary Ride: Space Politics and the Pursuit of a Canadian Dream, which he published in 2024. Joseph Jean-Pierre Marc Garneau was born on February 23, 1949 in Quebec City, one of four sons of a brigadier general who served in World War II and a nurse who met her future husband while treating him in a hospital in Montreal before he left for battle. His grandfather Gérard Garneau was a colonel who fought in World War I. 4 Kentucky doctors were preparing to remove the organs. Then they woke up. A federal investigation found a Kentucky nonprofit pushed hospital workers toward surgery despite signs of revival in patients. The investigation was spurred by the case of Anthony Thomas Hoover II, who had an overdose in 2021. Excerpts edited by RAW-SEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, June 6, 2025. 4 years ago, an unconscious Kentucky man began to awaken as he was about to be removed from life support so his organs could be donated. Even though the man pulled his legs to his chest and shook his head, officials still tried to move forward. Now a federal investigation has found that officials at the nonprofit in charge of coordinating organ donations in Kentucky ignored signs of growing alertness, not only in that patient but also in dozens of other potential donors. The investigation examined about 350 cases in Kentucky over the past 4 years in which plans to remove organs were ultimately cancelled. It found that in 73 instances officials should have considered stopping sooner because the patients had high or improving levels of consciousness. Although the surgeries did not happen, the investigation said multiple patients showed signs of pain or distress while being readied for the procedure. Most of the patients eventually died hours or days later, but some recovered enough to leave the hospital, according to an investigation by the Federal Health Resources and Services Administration. administration. The investigation centered on an increasingly common practice called donation after circulatory death. Unlike most organ donors who are brain-dead, patients in these cases have some brain function but are on life support and not expected to recover. Often they are in a coma. In December 2022, a 50-year-old overdose victim began stirring less than an hour after being taken off life support and started looking around. The retrieval attempt was not immediately ended, nor was the patient given any explanation. The patient had no idea what was going on but was becoming more aware by the minute records noted. After 40 more minutes, when the organs of the patient would no longer qualify for donation, the attempt was called off and he was moved to an intensive care unit. He later sat up and spoke with his family before dying 3 days later. The federal inquiry began last fall after a congressional committee heard testimony about the Kentucky man Anthony Thomas Hoover II, who had an overdose in 2021. He was unresponsive for 2 days before his family agreed to donate his organs. Over the next 2 days, the procurement organization moved toward surgery even as his neurological condition improved. During one exam, records show he was thrashing on the bed. He was sedated to prevent further motion. The hospital staff was extremely uncomfortable with the amount of reflexes patient is exhibiting. Hospital staff kept stating that this was euthanasia. A procurement organization coordinator assured them it was not. When Hoover was taken for the retrieval, records show he cried, pulled his knees to his chest and shook his head. A hospital doctor refused to withdraw life support. Hoover eventually recovered. Now 36, he has lingering neurological injuries. Two former employees of the procurement organization said higher-ups tried to pressure the doctor to continue the retrieval attempt. If it had not been for that physician, we absolutely 1000% would have moved forward, said one of them who was in the room. 3 other former Kentucky employees said they had seen similar cases. The investigation did not say if there was pressure on doctors who treated Hoover. Network for Hope did not respond to a request for comment on that case. The Office of the Kentucky Attorney General also launched an investigation into the Hoover case on Thursday. The office said the review was ongoing. 5. The Netherlands ASML. How the maker of the most complex machine humans ever created is navigating trade fights. ASML, the Dutch company that makes multi-million-dollar tools to manufacture advanced semiconductors, is grappling with the repercussions of a tech trade war. The company makes complex lithography machines that are used to manufacture cutting-edge chips. Excerpts edited by Vasyl. For brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, June 5, 2025. Last month, President Trump announced 50% tariffs on European goods sold to the United States, potentially raising some costs for the ASML lithography machines, which are critical for producing advanced microchips. 2 days later, Trump paused the tariffs. Around the same time, the foreign minister of the Netherlands was in Beijing, partly to discuss lifting the rules that bar Chinese companies from buying the ASML equipment. And this week, the Dutch government collapsed, throwing any trade talks into question. All of these events had the potential to disrupt ASML, which is the only maker of complex lithography machines that can cost as much as $400 million and be as big as a train car. The tools are so coveted by nations such as China and the United States for making cutting-edge chips that ASML has been turned into a geopolitical chess piece in trade battles, with some of its products restricted for export to certain countries. The tussling has made it an uncertain time for a 52-year-old Frenchman who took over as chief executive of the $300 billion company last year. The ASML headquarters is in the small town of Veldhoven, about 80 miles south of Amsterdam. 6. Germany. Trump scorns Angela Merkel legacy. During the White House visit of the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz struggles to get word in as Trump focuses on the record of former German leader who left office in 2021. Excerpts edited by Vasyl. For brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, June 5, 2025. The former Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the White House in 2017 during the Trump first term of office, when she was given a grilling by Trump over her so-called open door policy, which allowed around 1 million refugees, mainly from Syria and Iraq, into Germany. The highly anticipated visit of current 2025 German Prime Minister Friedrich Merz been viewed with trepidation in Berlin amid fears that the German leader may face another Oval Office ambush such as those endured by Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and the president of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. In the end, all the criticism was levied at Merkel. A former political rival of Merz, Trump also made a dig about the enthusiasm of Merkel for the building of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which brought gas from Russia to Europe. During the 35-minute press conference, Merz struggled to get a word in. When he did manage to speak, the former corporate lawyer mostly focused on Ukraine and the need to end the conflict, in particular by bringing the Russian President Vladimir Putin to account. Merz also pushed back several times on the Trump narrative that Ukraine and Russia were equally to blame for the war. Trump says it may be better to let Ukraine and Russia fight for a while. Friedrich Merz said, "I am here, President, to talk to you later on how we could contribute to that goal to end the war. We are all looking for measures and for instruments to bring this terrible war to an end." Merz compared the U.S. role in ending the conflict with a positive part U.S. troops played in defeating the Nazi dictatorship. Merz noted that Friday will mark the 81st anniversary of D-Day, in which tens of thousands of U.S. troops joined Allied troops in invading Normandy. The U.S., he said, was again in the very strong position to do something about ending the war. Trump, he said, was the key person in the world who could stop the war by putting pressure on Russia. Trump praised Germany for having agreed to boost its defense spending to 5% of GDP after years-long demands from Washington for it to do so. Asked by a German journalist whether Berlin was doing enough on defense, Trump said, "I know you Germany are spending more money on defense now, quite a bit more money. That is a positive." There's some nervous laughter in the room. Friedrich Merz prepared for the visit in part by talking to other leaders who have met Trump in recent months to gather tips about the best way to handle him. Angela Merkel has said that she prepared for her first Trump visit when he was less well known as a politician by reading a 1980s interview with him in Playboy and watching episodes of The Apprentice. In 2025, Friedrich Merz was put up for the night in the official government guest house Blair House. 7 Cancer Key Takeaways from the largest cancer conference in the world in Chicago. Experts announce findings on immunotherapy, a breast cancer breakthrough, and the value of exercise. Subsetted by ROSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, June 6, 2025. Doctors, scientists and researchers shared new findings on ways to tackle cancer at the 2025 American Society of Clinical Oncology annual meeting, the largest cancer conference in the world. The event in Chicago, attended by about 44,000 health professionals, featured more than 200 sessions. The 6 key studies. 1. Immunotherapy. An immunotherapy drug could help some cancer patients live years longer without the disease getting worse or coming back. A trial found pembrolizumab, sold under the brand name Keytruda, kept head and neck cancers at bay for 5 years compared with 30 months with standard care. It also cut the risk of the disease returning. In another part of the body. 2. CAR T-cell therapy. CAR T-cell therapy is a new form of immunotherapy in which the T-cells, a type of white blood cell of a patient, are tweaked in a lab to target and kill cancer cells. The designer cells are then infused back into their bloodstream to fight the disease. One trial found cancer patients treated by CAR T-cell therapy could live 40% longer. The therapy has already proved successful in treating blood cancers. Now, results from the first randomized controlled trial of CAR T-cell therapy in solid tumors in the world suggest it could be transformative in the fight against these cancers. 2. Solid tumors represent about 90% of all cancers, including breast, lung and pancreatic cancer. In the trial, patients with advanced gastric or gastroesophageal junction cancer treated with CAR T-cell therapy lived on average about 40% longer than patients who received standard care. A second CAR T-cell therapy shrank tumors in 62% of patients with recurrent glioblastoma. 3. Liquid biopsies. In a world first, doctors announced at the conference that thousands of cancer patients in England would benefit from a DNA blood test that saves lives by fast-tracking them onto personalized treatments. The liquid biopsy looks for circulating tumor DNA to find specific genetic variations of cancer. The NHS will offer it to patients with lung and breast cancer, 2 of the most common forms of the disease. Rapid results pave the way for a new era of precision medicine. 4. Exercise cuts the risk of death in cancer patients by more than a third. A landmark trial found 5 breast cancer amid a series of breakthroughs aimed at tackling the most common cancer in women. Doctors were told a new drug could stop some breast cancer tumors before they grow. A trial showed that camizestrant stops cancer cells from using hormones to grow. 6. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence could help end a postcode lottery for life-extending treatment for prostate cancer. Researchers said abiraterone is a hormone therapy described as a game-changer that works by blocking the production of testosterone, which fuels prostate cancer growth. 8 Ukraine. He is a bulldog, the man behind the success of the Ukraine Operation Spiderweb. Vasyl Malyuk, who hailed giving Russia a slap in the face, has scored a series high-profile successes as head of the security service of Ukraine. SBU excerpts edited by ASML for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization, The Guardian, June 6, 2025. It was unsurprising to those who know Vasyl Malyuk, the head of the security service of Ukraine SBU, that his statement announcing the success of Operation Spiderweb had a certain physicality to it. The audacious drone attacks on distant bases hosting the Russian strategic bombers was a serious slap in the face to the Russian power, said Malyuk, age 42, a sometime boxer and weightlifter. Our strikes will continue as long as Russia terrorizes Ukrainians with missiles and Shahed drones. Sources inside the government said they did not believe it was the decision of Malyuk publicized the operations to this extent. Zelensky is all about media attention. He eats and drinks it, said one government source. Malyuk, in contrast, is said to keep his comments to the point when briefing ministers and expects a similar lack of verbosity from those within his service. He gives his subordinates the time he thinks they need to complete their tasks. Malyuk earned carte blanche.
Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. Rosette view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosette view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.